What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1, and we continue our 2025 predictions here. The LSU Tigers up next. The team coming off of a disappointing season last year. You look ahead to 2025. This is a playoff contender. I mean, they've got the talent. This should absolutely be a team that at least has a chance to get into that 12-team playoff. And then on the other side, you wonder about Brian Kelly and his job security if this season does not go well. If they do not make the college football playoff, or they go 8-4 again. I don't know that he can survive another 8-4 season here at LSU. So that's going to be interesting to watch to see which way this goes. We'll get into our predictions here, and I'll give you some more thoughts on this team, on this roster. But first, let's look back at predictions from the last 3 years. Sometimes I regret doing this because all the comments you guys are giving me are basically just telling me how wrong I've been in the past. When actually I feel like these predictions have been pretty good compared to other people who predict every single team. But you go back to the last 3 years. Last year I was very high on this team, had them at 10-2. They went 8-4. The year before I was 11-1. They went 9-3. So I was too high on them the last 2 years. In 2022 I had them at 8-4. They were 9-3, so was one game under their record. So yeah, I mean, I would say definitely, at least looking back the last 2 years, I've been 2 games over their actual record the last 2 years. So I have overrated LSU. We'll see if that happens again this year. So let's get into here's the schedule, and then I'll give you my thoughts on this LSU team. So I do think this is, like I said, a playoff contender for sure. I think this is a top 10 team in the country in terms of talent. I like, of course, Garrett Nussmeier coming back. One of the top quarterbacks returning in all of college football. I love the receiver group. I think running back, offensive line will be solid. Will they be great? I don't know if they'll be great, but I think they'll be solid. And then on defense, you know, the talent's there. This is going to be a talented defense, but they just have not quite put it together, or they didn't last year. You look at the defensive line, I think that'll be solid. The linebackers, that's going to be the strength of this team. With Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins, that's probably the best linebacker duo in all of college football, or at least, you know, among the top duos. I mean, those guys are really, really good. And then secondary, again, talent is there. That's the big one. They've had some talent in the secondary. It just has not worked out. I don't know exactly what, you know, if it's scheme or what's going on there, but if they don't take some strides forward, especially in that secondary, and the defense lets them down, you know, it could be a disappointing year for LSU. But if the talent comes together, if they're able to run the football, the offensive line does a good job, LSU not only could be a playoff team, but maybe could even make a run at a national championship. Again, the roster is there. We'll just have to see how it comes together. Let's get into the predictions here, and we will start with this first game against Clemson. Of course, Brian Kelly has not been able to win these big non-conference games to open up the season. I know LSU fans would much rather see, you know, maybe Louisiana Tech in the first game and then maybe play Clemson, but they will open up again with a tough non-conference game. They're going to be on the road at Clemson. Of course, a tough place to play. This is a veteran team. I think if you're looking at teams that are talented, you know, the top 20 or so most talented teams, and then you flip to experience, Clemson's probably the most experienced team out of that group. Now, there might be a more experienced team that maybe doesn't have that talent. I don't know. I haven't done the rankings there on returning production and all that, but they're experienced. This team is loaded. They're talented. I think the offense is finally going to come together for them. We saw it at the end of last year. Offensive line, defensive line, that's where Clemson is going to be really good. I think they're going to have an advantage over LSU in that area. Home field advantage. Again, LSU not been able to win these season openers. Everything to me here points towards Clemson. So I'm going with Clemson in this opener, and then I do think LSU beats Louisiana Tech the next week. September 13th up next here. This is a huge swing game. This is a toss-up game. I could really see this game going either way. Man, it's tough when you look at these two teams. Again, it's a pretty even matchup. I think it'll be very close. I think it'll come down to, you know, who makes a play late. Home field advantage gonna favor LSU. We know how tough it is to win in Death Valley, so that's going to be one thing that will definitely help them out. And then I look at these LSU linebackers. Again, this is an elite duo with Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins. I think that could be the difference here in this game. They maybe cause a big sack late in the game, or a fumble, or, you know, something like that maybe is the difference here. And those linebackers, I think, could win LSU a couple of games this year, and I think this might be one of them. I'm going to go with LSU at home over Florida, but I wouldn't be shocked if Florida goes in there and wins this game. So that's going to be a huge one. If LSU does lose to Clemson and then they lose to Florida, I don't think there's any recovery from that. I think the season's pretty much over at that point. So they've got to win at least one of those two games because the schedule's pretty tough. They got Ole Miss next, September 27th. This should be a competitive game for sure. I don't think Ole Miss is going to be as good as they were last year. I don't think people realize the talent that they lost, especially on defense. This was actually a good defense, which is something they haven't really had. But I think they're downgrading that defense a little bit. The offense, we'll see what happens with Simmons at quarterback. I think that they'll still be pretty good, but I don't think they're good enough. They're playing at home, so that's going to give them a chance to pull off the upset here. And again, that might keep this game close into the second half. But I think LSU is going to be too much. Going Tigers here in this one over Ole Miss. Then they get a bye week before playing South Carolina on October 11th. That was a great game last year. South Carolina really, you could argue they should have won that game. But you look at the two teams this year, I think LSU is the better team, the more talented team. And again, if their defense can take those steps forward, I think their linebackers, again, could be a difference. I think their ability to spy Lenore Sellers, to stop him in the run game, which is going to be probably going to be the toughest thing to stop when you look at the South Carolina offense. It's Lenore Sellers and his legs. I mean, he is a dynamic runner. And so I think that could be a challenge for a lot of teams. But LSU, I believe, has the talent to do that. I think their offense will be able to score on the South Carolina defense. So I think they win this game at home. Fairly close game, but maybe by a couple touchdowns. All right, next we've got Vanderbilt on the road. Vandy just, again, it's a great story of what they did last year, but when you just match up these two rosters, it's really not close. Can Vandy pull off the big upset again this year? I don't really see it happening in this one. I like LSU to win this game and get to 6-1. Then they got Texas A&M October 25th at home, another toss-up game. You've got several of these: Florida, Texas A&M, Alabama, Oklahoma. 4 games in the SEC that could really, flip a coin almost in those 4 games. So this will be a big one. Again, home field advantage will be huge. Very tough to go into LSU and win. You look at the matchups here. Again, you're talking about Marcel Reed, a running quarterback. LSU's linebackers, I think, should be able to slow him down. Again, flip a coin. If you want to pick Texas A&M here, that's fine with me. But it's so close. I'm going with the home team. I'm going with LSU to beat Texas A&M. Then they get their second bye week before a road game in Alabama. I believe Alabama also has a bye week going in, so no advantage there. A tough place to play, obviously, in Tuscaloosa. That game last year still, I'm surprised at how it went. LSU kind of went off the rails there towards the end of the season, but I think they'll be ready for this game this year. I think they will come in with a chance in this one. But I mean, Alabama, I think, better in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. I give them an advantage there. Their secondary, I think, will match up really well with these LSU receivers. I think this is a bad matchup for LSU. I think they play tough, but at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to be able to win it. So this is one that I'm going to go Alabama. And again, with these two losses, Clemson and Alabama, I feel fairly confident that LSU is going to lose those 2 games. I feel less confident about them winning against Texas A&M and Florida. So that's interesting there, at least my take. I think this schedule is going to be tough for LSU. You got Arkansas next on November 15th. Should be a pretty good game. Arkansas will be a solid team, but LSU's the better team. If this game was on the road, I think it would be definitely one you look out for as a potential upset. But I think playing at home, LSU should be able to take care of business. And they'll be in desperation mode after losing Alabama. They cannot lose again. I think they come out fired up. They win this game over Arkansas. Then they beat Western Kentucky to get to 9-2. And then we've got one more toss-up game. Here it is against Oklahoma on the road, November 29th. This is going to be a huge game. Potentially a game that the winner gets in the playoff, the loser does not get in. I think Oklahoma could be that good this year. It should be a great game. Home field advantage does favor Oklahoma here. I like Oklahoma's balance on offense. I think LSU's defense might struggle a little bit to slow them down. And I like Oklahoma's defense. I think Oklahoma's defense is going to be really good, especially in the front 7. So I think they cause some problems for this LSU offense playing at home. I like Oklahoma to get this win. So I think that's going to knock LSU potentially out of the college football playoff. Now, 9-3 doesn't guarantee that they won't get in, but odds are that they will not get in at 9-3. And I think that's a pretty fair prediction. As I showed the last 2 years, I've overrated this team. If I'm overrating them again, then that means they're going to go 7-5 or 8-4. And if that happens, Brian Kelly is going to be gone, in my opinion. I don't really think I'm overrating them by 2 games. I think for me, it's 8-4, 9-3, 10-2. That's where I see LSU. I'm going in the middle of that at 9-3. But they could lose to Florida. They could lose to Texas A&M. They could get drop all the way to 7-5. I think they could beat Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's a game that they could win. I think they could get to 10-2, get to the college football playoff. I don't feel great about, just for whatever reason, I don't feel great about the Clemson game or the Alabama game. But yeah, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas A&M, those are the games that I think really could go either way. So I've got them at 9-3. Again, not quite making the college football playoff. More than likely, we'll see what it looks like when we finish all the teams. But that's my prediction. Would love to get your prediction. Give me your thoughts on this LSU team and your record prediction down in the comments below.